What's going on, guys? Ben here with Strong Insurance. Today we are going to discuss the type of trailers that you choose and the commodities that you choose to operate with when starting your fleet or choosing a direction for your existing fleet to kind of specialize in and things like that. We're going to start out with dry van. Dry van is one of the most common types of trucking operations out there. A lot of guys out there are doing it, and subsequently the rates are not perfect in that regard. We're seeing rates in 2024 around $2 a mile up to $250, maybe $275. Spot rates are going to be closer to that $2, $225 a mile, and your direct contracts can be $250 to $325 a mile. I mean, obviously, if you have your own direct contracts, there's definitely more money to be made in the space. That same common theme you're going to see across all these different options. Now, refrigerated or reefer, this is a little bit more specialized. There's obviously more maintenance involved and higher overhead to maintain these reefer trailers, but that comes with a little bit better rate. We're seeing spot rates in 2024 around $2.42, $2.50 a mile, and then we're seeing up to $3.25 for our contract drivers. Now, you might even be able to get higher than that, depending on if you're hauling, certain swinging meats and ice creams and things like that. Can start to get a little bit higher on that contract rate if you can find the right contracts. Now, flatbed is probably the second most common behind dry van, or right there neck and neck with dry van. Flatbed, we see right now in 2024 the spot rate around $250 a mile, and we see that anywhere from $250 up to $325 to maybe even $350 if you've got those contracts. So once again, getting into the contracts is definitely going to be the way to go. Obviously, if you're a new venture, that's really hard to do. Go put some miles under your belt, start to make connections, meet people, and try to get your own contracts. Now, when it comes to hazardous material, this can be a little bit more difficult. The rate per mile on this varies drastically on geographical location, non-corrosive, corrosive, flammable, non-flammable. There's a ton of variables in the hazardous material space. Now, obviously, the rate per mile is elevated here. Generally speaking, I don't advise anyone with less than 2 years of CDLA experience to go out there and try to get behind the wheel of a hazmat truck. You got to take your lumps a little bit on that. Go get some experience under your belt, and then maybe look at going into the hazardous space side. So hazardous, there's obviously way more regulations involved here. There's definitely some maintenance involved here, and subsequently the rates tend to be better. I've seen hazardous coming in as low as $280 to $325 a mile, and I've seen it coming in as high as $6 a mile to haul some of this hazardous material, depending on what it is. I would say on average it's $4.25, maybe up to $5 a mile. Most of the time, it's harder to find direct contracts with the hazardous space. A lot of those are gobbled up by some of the bigger guys. So definitely keep that in mind. Make sure that regardless of what kind of trailer you're going with, that you make sure the supply and demand is there for you to go out and build a 10 truck fleet with that type of trailer and going after that type of commodity. Now, same thing with livestock. Livestock can be extremely profitable. I know a ton of guys, even out here in Western Nebraska and throughout the Midwest, that make a killing hauling these cattle. Now, that being said, once again, I don't recommend someone jumping behind the wheel for the very first time and taking a cattle pot full of cattle down the highway down to Texas from Nebraska or anything like that. A lot of those guys that we see doing that out here came up hauling hay, then they graduated over to cattle, and that's how they got into cattle. Now, there's a ton of money to be made in it. The cost per mile is variable based on geographical location, but it can be very lucrative as well. As you know, some of these guys are driving some of the sweetest trucks on the highway. And then lastly, to get into the industry, I know no one loves doing this, but there can be money to be made if you do it correctly, is the Amazon loads. These are generally going to be dry van, hook drop loads. There's a ton of different things you can get into with Amazon. I've seen these rates as low as $1.20, and I've seen these rates as high as $3.10 a mile here in 2024. So there's definitely a ton of options here. My favorite is probably flatbed and livestock. We see a ton of those operations. We see very few of them are going belly up, but they're also making sure their insurance ducks are in a row, their safety and compliance is all ready to rock and roll. So those things come paramount to selecting your commodity, but make sure the supply and demand is there. If the demand is not there for flatbed, don't go buy 5 flatbed trucks and trailers and start trying to run flatbed. You've got to make sure the demand in your geographical area is there. Now, obviously, if you're going OTR, that's a whole different ball of wax. But even then, you need to look at the big picture of the industry across the United States and make sure the demand is there at any time, whether it's 2024 or whether you're watching this video in 2050. So if you want to learn any more about these and what the current rates are right now, feel free to reach out to any of our TRIP certified agents. We'd love to help you out, get to know the trucking insurance industry as well as the trucking industry as a whole. If you want to continue to learn more about these two things, feel free to give us a like, follow, or subscribe. And as always, keep it rubber side down.